All right, so I did a little bit more and just showing you a few things. I put on some seat or some floor pieces, some extra seat steps. There's the rear radio operator, maybe he's a gunner too. I put in some ammunition pieces. I extended the floor up front and I put a little makeshift hint of like a bomb sight. And on the seat, I actually got it looking better. I put seat belts in there. But I also did that, which is the armor on the top of the headpiece. And it's round, it's circular. It's concave. And I'll show you how I did that. And it actually worked. The reason I didn't show you, and then I put some little things on the radio with, I'll show you how to do that too. Remember, this is all old school stuff. This isn't a resin interior. So all those little pieces are little tiny sausages, little round sausages. And how I made them, they're going to be dials, is I went ahead and stretched some sprue from the kit. And here's the little piece of sprue. And all I did, I'm trying to make dials and representations of faces and things on instruments. So I got that to about what I think are the right thickness for the size of the radios, for instance. And all I do is just slice them off like little pieces of salami. And then they have a lot of static electricity, so they stick to your knife and they stick to your finger. But if you're careful and you make sure they don't twang and go off everywhere, you can get a pile of them. And some are better than others, but they're nice and circular in cross-section because your sprue was circular. And with a little practice, you can cut them pretty straight and you can get different thicknesses even. So what I'll do, like on this gun, on this bomb sight, I put some glue down. I lick my tip of the blade. I pick it up with the X-Acto, and you just plop it right down where you want it. Okay, I know this is about a 7,000-foot altitude, but you have to use your imagination a little bit. So here on the back, here on the radios, I want some dials back there. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just pick up one that I like, and I'm just doing this by eye, putting them in. And what it's going to do is lend interest, add interest. It is by no means super duper accurate. But this little liquid glue is great because you just put a little puddle on there, a little bit. It's working its magic. It's sticky, and you just pop one of these things in. You can adjust them a little bit where they go, and you end up with nice little dials. And again, representations of dials. These will get painted and dry brushed, and when it's all done, they'll look very convincing. Again, in a 1/72 scale cockpit. And this is a way I used to do it. Normal people use like a Waldron punch, and they punch out perfect circles out of their plastic. I was too lazy to go get my punch and die set, so I just do the sausage method. And again, in terms of this being 100% accurate, if a Ju-188 pilot looked at this, they would laugh. But when we put that nice canopy on there and we show it all done and you look through there, it's going to look absolutely fine. It's just supposed to add interest. Now here I want to cut off some pieces because there's a couple little bits and bobs that are supposed to go to make this bomb sight look a little more interesting. Because there's padding down there for a guy to lie down, and then his little bomb sight. So I'm putting a couple little more of those little notches or those little cylindrical pieces on there, kind of by eye, so they look good. But you can see the interior is starting ever so slowly to come together. I'm going to put dials and more things all on the edge. There's going to be dials on that instrument face. On this side, there's a big panel that goes on there we'll have to build together. It's a little bit tricky. Got to do something with the underneath where the bottom gunner goes. There's also some folded seats in there. I also, and I'm pointing out, there's that piece. Now, how did I do it? I took some real fine, very skinny brass that I bought at a hobby store a long time ago. It's still available. I think it's not impossible. And it's so fine that a few passes of an X-Acto blade and some bending back and forth cuts it very cleanly. Be careful with this stuff because it is sharp, but I haven't cut myself yet. Of course, I'm ancient and I've done this for a million years. But anyway, be careful. But just 2 or 3 passes is enough to cut through. If you kept going, you would cut through it completely. You're destroying your X-Acto blade, but what the heck? It's for a good cause. break off a little piece. And now to make this concave surface, I took my dabbing block and my little dabbing tool, one of them that was about the right size. I think it should fit just fine. And I chose a tinier one. That one should work pretty good. I'm trying to make it look like about the size of one of these guys' heads, wrap around their heads. So I put the piece of brass over. I put the dabbing tool on top of it. And then I took something handy, like another dabbing tool, and I hammered it a little bit. You should use a hammer probably or something beautiful, but I'm cheap and I'm just using what I got at my disposal. And a few taps with this very light brass, thin brass, you end up with it forming into that cup shape. And there it is. Now, it buckles a little bit, but what you do is you trim all that stuff off, because ultimately I want one end of this bowl to be flat, so I'm going to cut off a piece of it, and that's just super glued up to the top of the kit seat that I've made and gussied up a little bit. And again, to do this, all you got to do is, like on the paper models, you cut kind of tangentially to the circle all the way around, just in straight lines. It actually is easier than trying to go through it and cut it around in a curve. So I just do that 2 or 3 times. I go all the way around this piece. And once you go all the way around it, you can just take a pair of tweezers and start to fatigue them, and off they come in little leafy chunks. And now you've got almost a circle, so then you file it down a little bit, and it files very easily. It's solid enough to keep its shape really beautifully and look nice, but you can file it, and that's kind of nice, because again, what I have is tiny little saw teeth there that aren't quite beautiful. But if I sand these things down, it looks great, nice and smooth. And again, it's not the exact shape. I do something here to help it get to the better shape. Here I'm cutting off the base to make a flat component, which would just go on top of the sort of the shoulders of the seat and be what covers the pilot's head. And the real airplane, in a lot of these German bombers, they had this, it looks like a fishbowl that goes around the pilot. And I guess it's like on the Lancaster, the only piece of armor plate is right over the pilot's head. I've heard that was the most important part of the airplane, supposedly. Kind of makes your dorsal gunner and tail gunner feel pretty bad. But anyway, in this case, the shape is not perfect, what I end up with, but it's better than nothing, and it looks much better than what the kit made. Again, my seat is based on the kit, but then I added some parts to it, and it looks better than the last video just because I tweaked it. Nothing that you can't figure out how to do. Now, to make it shape a little better, I took the end of a paintbrush and threw it in here, just like I do with my paper models, and sort of squeezed it and twisted it to make it slightly oblong, so it's not a complete perfect little, watermelon half circle. Because it's supposed to have a little bit of it's supposed to be kind of have almost flat sides. And if I squeeze it a little bit, that'll work. And this is just to give you an idea of what I did. I didn't film it the first time because I didn't think it would work. And then it worked. And my wife said to me, you got to film these things every time because so she's right, as usual. But anyway, that's how I made that. And I just super glued it to the top, and like it would fit. There isn't one for the rear guy, but if there was, you would just stick it right there. And you end up with something that, again, isn't perfect, but once this is all together, you'll look at it and go, beautiful. I got to make rudder pedals that go there. And again, lots of switches that go on the side rail. And then over here, there's this complicated piece that's going to go here. There's some folding out seats that go there. I got to put seat belts. I made seat belts for the pilot, just with Tamiya tape, cut real thin and put down, just like I do with my paper models. So, this thing's coming along. Needs probably one more set, and she will be ready for priming.